Welcome to the North Carolina High School Flag Football Playoff Rules video. We have made it to the end of the regular season, and we will start the state tournament here this coming week. We know there's teams from all over the state that plan to play in the state playoffs, but we also know that the rules that some regions of the states have been playing with are different than what we will be using for the tournament. So the purpose of this video is to go over the NFHS high school flag football rules, at least the most important ones, to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're starting the state tournament again. This is for North Carolina. And so if you're watching from a different state, your rules may vary. Now let's get into it. Again, for this season, we have moved to the NFHS high school flag football rules. This rule book came out during the summer, and it was the first time that the National Federation for High School Sports has released a flag football rules book. So very exciting to have one standard unified rule set across the country for high school flag football. Now, if you're familiar with flag football in other rule sets, there are differences from what you see in USA, NFL flag, and other types of flag football rule sets. There's lots of them out there. So just some of the differences, if you're not familiar with the NFHS rules, are that there's a larger field, there's a new flag belt style, screen blocking is allowed, and a lot of differences amongst blitzing and when the defense can cross the line of scrimmage. There is no rush line, there is no designated rushers, there's no sack count on the quarterback. Anyone can run the ball, backward passes are allowed, and yes, there is punting. So teams can opt to punt the ball if they would like. All right. Now, just as a reminder, in North Carolina, we do have some state adaptations. So everything in this presentation will align with the rules we are playing with in North Carolina for the state tournament. There is the North Carolina rules document that has and will continue to be shared. We are using the NFHS rulebook, except for the adaptations that are on that rules document. Most of those go along with timing and a few other small things. So just make sure you have reviewed that rules document before we start games. All right, field and equipment. Let's get into it. So this is our flag football field for NFHS. It is an 80-yard field, bigger than some other rule sets. You will see that there is a 20-yard line, a 40-yard line, a 20-yard line, and obviously the goal lines. Those are your first down lines or your zone to gain lines. So every time that the offense crosses the next zone to gain, it is now a first down, and they will have 4 downs to reach the next zone to gain. Now, you will see some markings on the field. First, we have the X's at our 14-yard lines. That is where the offense will start with possession to start the game, start the second half, and also after a score. Now, if there is a punt or an interception, a change of possession, team's going to get the ball at wherever the dead ball spot is. You also have the 10-yard line and the 3-yard lines marked. The 10-yard line is where the 2-point try will take place. The 3-yard line is where the 1-point try will take place after a score. And the 30-yard line will be marked on some fields. That is the spot that the offense will get the ball following a safety. Our field is 40 yards wide for NFHS. And just a few other reminders about markings. The team box should be marked. The team box is in between the 20s on each side of the field. So each team gets their own side for their bench. But the teams, the players, the coaches, team personnel need to stay within that team box. So in between the 20s, they cannot wander down in between the 20 and the goal line. Our 2-yard restricted area, that is for the officials to work. So the team members, everybody in the team box needs to be at least 2 yards off of the field. That's for the officials to work. The coach can come into the restricted area to call a play, but needs to retreat back into the team box before each snap. And we still do have pylons. You will see on the diagram, we do not use the field goal posts in the state of North Carolina. They do have rules to kick field goals in the FHS, but we are not using those in North Carolina. Now, one of the bigger changes from other rule sets is how the line of scrimmage operates. There is a 1 yard neutral zone in this rule set. So you will see officials that should have an orange puck and a yellow puck. The orange puck they place at the offense's line of scrimmage. The offense must stay behind that orange puck prior to the snap. The yellow puck is placed 1 yard ahead, and that is the defense's line of scrimmage. Defense must stay behind the yellow puck. If pucks are not used, we still have a 1 yard neutral zone that must remain in place. Now we'll move on to some equipment pieces. The ball. Our ball size for NFHS is a youth size 7 ball. All right, youth size 7. You can see the dimensions there on the screen. And just a reminder that the offense is responsible for the ball, meaning that when we are using pucks for the officials, they are not going to set the ball down on the field. They're going to set the orange and yellow pucks down on the field. The offense is responsible for going to get the ball after each play and bringing that ball to the orange puck. Some other game equipment pieces. We do have down boxes that are required at each game site. Our down box should be placed at the first down line, the zone to gain, right? And then it also keeps track of what down it is. This is a huge communication piece for players, coaches, spectators, even the officials, so that we can keep track and everybody has an idea of the down and distance, right? So each game site should have a volunteer, staff member, somebody holding the down box. The vast majority of schools have been using the scoreboards as well, which is awesome. So we do need a scoreboard operator. If you're using the scoreboard, obviously that's a huge benefit for our spectators, the coaches and players as well, to see a visible time. Just make sure that clock operator has the copy of the rules. There is also a clock operator manual, essentially, that has been created and is linked on the state rules document. So that's a great resource for them. And then again, you'll see the orange and yellow pucks, but the officials should be bringing those. Mandatory player equipment. We do need to make sure that players are equipped properly. So these are the required pieces. They must have a jersey. They do have to have a mouth guard. All right. So every player must have a mouth guard during play. Obviously, they need pants, shorts, or a skirt. They have to have shoes, of course, and then that flag belt. And that flag belt is different than some rule sets. So we need to make sure we have the proper flag belt. We are using the one piece quick release flag belt with 3 flags on it. So, unlike some belts where the flag pops off, on this flag belt, the entire belt comes off when a runner is deflagged. The entire belt comes off. All right. So, we need to make sure we have the proper flag belts. Now, getting into specifics. So, jerseys and numbers. So, the jerseys do need to have numbers on the front and the back. It could be numbered 0 through 99. And they should be unaltered and tucked in. They must be tucked into the pants, right? We need to have the belts on top of the shorts and jerseys because the entire belt can be pulled off. All right. So you can't just have the jersey underneath the flag belt, it needs to be tucked into the pants. Visiting teams should be wearing white jerseys, home team dark jerseys. The big key here with the color of jerseys, they must contrast, right? So we must have options. Both teams should have another jersey option. Let's make sure, and that could be a penny, that's fine, but let's make sure that we have options to switch into. Let's talk further about mouth protectors or mouth guards. We do have some requirements on what those look like. You can tell on the top line here, all 3 of those mouth guards do not have any extra attachments. The 3 on the bottom each do. So the pacifier mouth guard or the other 2 that have those long straps, those are not legal. So we cannot have attachments on the mouth guards as that creates a safety issue. Players must have a mouth protector, but they can't have any extra attachments that go outside of the mouth. Let's move on to pants, shorts, skirts, because we do have some important requirements here to make these legal. All right. So players can wear pants, shorts, skirts, doesn't matter. And the team doesn't all have to match the style of the bottoms. The requirements, however, are that they are the same color, right? So they do need to have the same color of bottoms. So if the team's wearing black on for pants, shorts, skirts, the whole team should be in black. And that should clearly contrast with the color of the flag and the flag belts. All right. And that's the important piece here. So if the team is wearing black pants, shorts, their flags can be any other color but black. And then the flag belt, so the actual strap that goes around the waist, can be any other color but black. But they would not be permitted to wear a flag that's black or a flag belt that's black. All right. And I'll bounce down to that bottom bullet point. Those shorts or pants, they can have vertical striping on them. It's often difficult for teams to find pants without that vertical striping. But again, that vertical striping must be a different color than both the flag belt and the flags on the belt. All right. So again, for instance, if we have a team that is wearing green shorts or green pants, and that those green pants have a white stripe down the side, that is fine and legal as long as the flags that they have on are not green or white and the flag belt is not green or white. So they must clearly contrast with the pants, the shorts, and any striping on those pants or shorts. Now, pants, shorts, skirts, the other requirement, they cannot have pockets. This is a huge safety issue. They cannot have pockets. And that also means they cannot tape the pockets. All right. And I know in some rule sets you might be able to do that, but we cannot in the NFHS. So if the shorts were made with pockets, they will not be able to be worn. You cannot just tape up the pockets. That tape is inevitably going to come off. We also need to tuck in exposed drawstrings. They can't have belts. They can't have belt loops, right? Essentially, you can't have anything that's a loop or a pocket because that's a dangerous situation when a player is trying to pull the flag and getting their fingers and hands caught in those. Shoes and cleats, no color requirements on those. They can be any color. They just can't be metal cleats, with the one exception that there are some cleats that have a kind of a metal flat bottom tip. Those are fine as long as it's just the flat bottom. That's the metal part. But we haven't seen too many of these. All right, flag belts again. The flag belts must be unaltered. And again, it is 3 solid color flags on a quick release belt. So the entire belt will come off, not just one flag when it is pulled. You can see the minimum flag dimensions there. And no clothing may cover the belt or the flag. So again, the entire belt comes off. So a defender can pull any portion of the belt strap or a flag to deflag that runner. So we can't have shirts that are untucked covering flags or flag belts. Nothing can be over top of the flag belt. Some optional equipment, players can have some padding on their forearm, hip, knee, thigh, etc., as long as it's soft, non abrasive, unaltered. They can have arm sleeves. We don't have any color restrictions on arm sleeves. And they can have soft headwear. And what that means is that they could have like a beanie cap on, right? That's soft. They just can't have any headwear that has a knot or a bill on it. So you couldn't wear like a baseball cap because that has that hard bill on it. But we know it'll be colder, so they can wear a soft beanie cap if needed. They can have hair control devices. That's fine too, as long as there's nothing dangerous in the hair. But if they've got beads or bobby pins, that sort of stuff to control their hair, that is legal as long as it's not dangerous, and then they can certainly wear gloves. Moving on to illegal equipment. So players cannot wear jewelry, and this includes piercings, earrings, nose rings, bracelets, watches, um, and necklaces. Anything that's considered jewelry cannot be worn. And yes, this does mean piercings. All right. Now, we have gotten the question about the plastic spacers that can go in, I think specifically in ears. Those are fine. Those are specifically uh, created to be safe. So when we see the plastic spacers that can go to keep the piercing open, those are legal and okay. We've seen a few players with those this year. But any kind of metal jewelry, bracelets, necklaces, watches, earrings, piercings, those must be taken off prior to play. Players cannot wear audio video. They cannot have anything around their waist. So they can't have hand warmers, a towel stuck in their waistband, play card around their waist. They can't have anything around their waist because that's going to interfere with players trying to get to the flag belt. They can wear a play card, just needs to be on their arm. They can have a towel, but the towel they just need to put down on the field in between the pucks or in the backfield prior to the play. They cannot wear it around their waist. And then non-padded casts or hard braces on the arms. So any kind of cast or braces on the arms or the hands must be padded to be legal. Now let's move on to timing. And timing is an area where there are state adaptations for North Carolina and the rules that we are playing with that are different than what's in the NFHS rulebook. All right. So the state document that has the North Carolina rules has all of this detail. The standard game timing is 4 10-minute quarters with a 30 seconds in between each quarters in between each quarter, meaning the first and the second, and the third and the fourth to switch sides of the field. Halftime is 5 minutes, and then each team gets two 30-second timeouts per half. All right. Stopping the clock. The clock will not stop in the first 3 quarters of the game, except for team and officials timeouts. So, again, it's essentially a running clock for the first 3 quarters of the game. And yes, that includes right before halftime in the second quarter. So, the only way the clock stops during the first 3 quarters is if a team calls a timeout or the officials stop the clock for an official's timeout. Now, the clock will stop, according to NFHS rules, beginning with the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter through the remainder of the game. So once we get under 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, at that point, we play the normal NFHS stop clock rules. Officials should stop the clock and announce a 2-minute warning during the first dead ball opportunity once the clock reaches 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. Obviously, if a play is going on and the 2 minutes hits, that play will finish and then they will stop the clock for the 2-minute warning. The 2-minute warning is not a timeout, it's just a stoppage to announce we are now in clock stop rules. The mercy rule, if we do have a team that is leading by 30 or more points with less than 2 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, a running clock will be used for the remainder of the game. So essentially, once a team is up by 30 points at any point under 2 minutes in the fourth quarter, it's just a running clock the rest of the way. We will not stop it for the NFHS stop clock rules. Now, if a team is up by 30, and then the team that's trailing scores to bring it under 30. If they were up by 30 with under 2 minutes to go, we're still running the clock. All right. So at any point, a team is up by 30 points with less than 2 minutes remaining in the fourth. Doesn't matter what happens afterwards, but at any point, we're running the clock the rest of the way. Now, when does the clock stop? So again, we are only talking about under 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. That's the only time we are starting and stopping the clock. So once we get into that time period, the clock will stop just like normal tackle football with a 2-minute warning when there's a new series awarded to the defense of the receiving team. So a change of possession, essentially. On the score, a touchback, a safety. If a foul occurs, we stop the clock. If we have an incomplete pass, the runner goes out of bounds. We have a first down, the clock stops. Obviously, a timeout or an inadvertent whistle. Now, when the clock stops, there's two potential options for when the clock will restart. It will either start on the snap or it will start when the referee gives the ready for play signal. All right. And depending why the clock stops is going to determine when the clock restarts. So these are the situations when the clock will start on the snap. So when we have a change of possession, so when the defense of the receiving team get the new series, a safety, an incomplete pass, runner goes out of bounds, charge timeout, a period ends, delay of game foul, 2-minute warning, team attempts to consume time illegally. All of these things, the clock will start on the snap. Now, the clock will start on the ready for play, meaning when the referee gives the ready for play signal, blows the whistle, clock's rolling. When the clock is stopped for a first down that does not go out of bounds, an official's timeout, foul occurs, inadvertent whistle, or teammate forward fumble out of bounds. And that asterisk is the first down, the official's timeout, and the foul occurs. Those are dependent on what else happened in the play. So if one of those items from the previous slide happened, but we also got a first down, the clock's going to be on the snap. But let's say that we get, player runs for a first down, is deflagged in bounds. In that case, the clock's going to start on the ready for play. If you have questions, ask the officials on your field, and they should be announcing the status of the clock once we get under 2 minutes on each play. A couple additional timing notes, really especially for coaches to know. Once we get under 2 minutes in that fourth quarter, when we have a foul and the clock is running, so if we have for instance, we have flag guarding and the player was deflagged in bounds. The defense would then get to choose whether the clock restarts on the snap or on the ready for play. So just know that when there's a foul under 2 minutes in the fourth quarter, that the offended team does have a choice whether to start the clock on the snap or the ready for play. Now that only works one way. So the choice would be to stop the clock when it should be running. We do not have the option to make the clock run when it should not be running. So again, your officials will let you know in these situations, but just know that there are options. Correcting timing errors, our officials will work with the clock operator to correct obvious timing errors, and the officials should also be keeping the watch and the clock on the field. Normally, the back judge will take care of that responsibility, and that is the official game clock on the field. And then finally, extending periods. So if we do have a foul during the last play of a period, or since we have a running clock in the first through third periods, if we have a foul that occurs in the dead ball interval after the last play, but then the quarter ends, we will extend the period for one untimed down if we have an accepted penalty. Now, if we go to overtime, overtime is not listed in the NFHS rulebook. It's not in there. So we do have overtime procedures in the state rules document, and this is what it looks like. It's essentially kind of a sudden death. The winner of the coin toss will have another coin toss. Winner of the coin toss will select to either go on offense or defense first for the first overtime period. So their choice, if they win the toss, do you want to be offense first or defense first? The other team then will pick the side of the field, and we will stay on that side of the field for the entire overtime period. Teams will then alternate offense and defense for any additional overtime periods. So let's say that red team is on offense for the first overtime period, and the white team's on defense. For the second overtime period, it would flip. So the white team that was on defense for the first would then be on offense to start the second overtime period. So we don't have more coin tosses, it just alternates for each additional period. Now, a period entails each team getting one play. You get to choose to go for a 1-point try from the 3 or a 2-point try from the 10. And that's it. There's one play. All right. If the score is still tied, then we go to another overtime period. So if both teams don't score, we have another overtime. Or if both teams choose for the same amount and both get it, we have another overtime. So let's say that, team A goes on offense first and they go for 1 and they get it. Now the other team that was on defense first gets to decide, do I want to go for 1 to tie or do I want to go for 2 to win? So you have some strategy there. There's no timing during overtime. There's no timeouts during overtime. And the ball is dead if the defense gains possession. So you cannot run back an interception during overtime. Our play clock is 25 seconds for NFHS flag football, and it is on the ready for play signal. So when the referee has put down the pucks, the orange and the yellow puck, you will see them back up into their position and blow the ready for play whistle. So they will blow a whistle before each play. So make sure if you're on offense that you're not snapping the ball until the referee blows the whistle. At that point, you have 25 seconds to snap the ball, and the referees should be giving you time updates when there's 10 seconds left in the play clock, and then counting down the last 5 seconds so that the quarterback knows how much time is on the play clock. But if they were to not snap the ball within this 25 seconds, we have a delay of game. Live and dead ball. So these are situations when the ball becomes dead. All right. So this is when the ball becomes dead. We have a runner that goes out of bounds. Obviously, the ball is dead at that spot. If the runner touches the ground with something other than their hand or foot, the runner is down. So let's say that's a wide receiver catches a pass, but catches a pass with one knee on the ground. All right. They get the catch, but that knee causes them to be down at that spot. Right. They can put their hand down. A runner can put their hand down to keep their balance. They also could put the ball on the ground to keep their balance, as that's the extension of their hand. But if that ball is to come loose and touch the ground, now that's a fumble and the ball is dead at that spot. Obviously, if the flag or the flag belt, so our entire flag belt will be removed here with these style flag belts, the runner's down at that spot. And then let's talk about if a flag belt comes off inadvertently. All right, this will happen. So let's say that we have a runner that has the ball and is running down the field with no defenders around her. And just from running, that causes the flag belt to, accidentally fall off. The play is not dead. It is now one hand touch. The defense must touch that runner with one hand between the shoulders and the knees. At that point, the runner is down. All right, so it is one hand touch if a flag belt comes off inadvertently. Ball is also dead on an incomplete pass if we have a simultaneous catch or recovery. And then the next one, fumble, muff, or backward pass touches the ground. There is only one time in NFHS flag football when the ball is not dead and it hits the ground. That's on a punt. We'll get to that. But fumbles, muffs, backward passes, any of those hit the ground, the ball is dead at that spot and belongs to the team that last had possession of the ball. And then the live ball goes out of bounds. And then finally, a touchback. We'll talk about that on punts. Kicking team catches or recovers a scrimmage kick, obviously, if we have a score. And then also if the defense gains possession on a try or an overtime. So again, the defense cannot run back an interception on either a try or overtime. The ball is dead at that point. Pre-snap. All right, so in this section, we'll talk about what the offense can do legally before the ball is snapped. So, talking about movement, motion, formations, those sorts of things. Our snapper. So, our snapper needs to be on the orange puck, right? They are the only person on the offense that needs to be, essentially on the line of scrimmage. Unlike tackle football, we don't have any requirements for the amount of offensive players on the line of scrimmage. You just have to have the snapper. Now that snapper can snap from in between their legs, from the side. It doesn't matter, but they do need to have their feet behind the neutral zone and the body behind the ball. So the only thing that they can have in front of the ball is their hands, and essentially, their entire body, other than potentially a hand on top of the ball, needs to be behind that orange puck. After touching and adjusting the ball, the snapper cannot remove both hands. They can't simulate a snap. They can't fail to clearly pause before the snap, and they can't lift or move the ball other than obviously snapping it. Now you're going to have a little bit of adjustment when the snapper, puts the ball on the ground and is looking backwards. They may rotate the ball slightly. That's not a big deal. We're really looking for things that could potentially cause the defense to encroach here. The snap must immediately leave the hands of the snapper, and it needs to be a quick and continuous backward motion. All right, so you can't lift the ball and then in a separate movement throw it backwards. It has to be one quick and continuous motion. Again, it can be snapped between the legs or to the side, and it can go to any offensive player. So, although we use the term quarterback, as common phrase, there is technically no quarterback in flag football. You can snap the ball to anybody as long as that offensive player is 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So, you could snap it out wide to an offensive player that is 2 yards back, but maybe 10 yards to the right or left of the snapper. That's totally legal as long as it is one quick continuous motion backward and that player is at least 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage when they receive the snap. And again, you cannot snap before the ready for play signal. So make sure you let the referee blow that ready for play whistle before snapping the ball. Now, some common penalties that occur around the neutral zone and the snap. The first is encroachment. So following the ready for play after the snapper has hands on the ball, encroachment occurs when any player breaks the neutral zone. If a defensive player contacts the ball before the snap ends, or defensive players contact the snapper before the snap is released. So essentially, we know we have our orange puck for the offense, our yellow puck for the defense. If we have players that break those planes prior to the ball being snapped, that's when we would have an encroachment penalty. Now, just like in tackle football, if a player lines up in the neutral zone, generally the officials will try to help get them aligned on side. So you will see them, telling players to scoot back, scoot back. But if they don't scoot back and the snap occurs, then we have a dead ball penalty. Similar to encroachment, we have false starts, and those are only on the offense. So a false start is slightly different. It's when the offense simulates action at the snap, right? So we know if an offensive player jumps forward before the ball is snapped, that's going to be a false start. Or if they make any act clearly intended to cause B to encroach. So those would be considered false starts, also a dead ball penalty. Now, formations wise, again, it's so much simpler here in flag football than it is in tackle football. So, how must the offense be lined up? They can be anywhere in the backfield. We just need to have the snapper on the line of scrimmage and a player in position to receive the snap at least 2 yards back. Right? Those are really the only requirements. So the other 5 players can be anywhere on the offense's side of the ball. They do not have to have a minimum number of people on the line of scrimmage other than the snapper. Now, you see on the screen the 5 yard arrow there. By rule, all offensive players do need to be at least 5 yards onto the field uh, at some point after they're ready for play, right? And really, that's just to prevent an offensive team putting in a late substitute that just steps, 2 feet onto the field and deceives the defense. The defense, they can be anywhere. The 7 players on defense can be lined up anywhere. Again, there is no rush puck or rush line here in the NFHS rules. So the defenders could be all 7 of them right up on the yellow puck if they would like to. They can also all rush and blitz if they want to. So there's no limits on the amount of defensive players rushing, blitzing, or where they line up. At the snap, everybody can move everywhere. So as soon as the snap occurs, the defense can come across into the neutral zone, the offense can come across into the neutral zone. There's no restrictions. And who is eligible? Everybody's eligible. So the snapper's eligible. All offensive players are eligible to catch passes. So we don't have to worry about that kind of pass eligibility in flag football. Anyone can catch the ball. Anyone can throw the ball. Anybody can hand the ball off. There's no restrictions there. When it comes to substitutes, teams can substitute any number of players between downs. Obviously, you can't do it in the middle of a play. It's not hockey. But in between downs, they can substitute as many players as you'd like. The replaced players should begin to leave the field within 3 seconds of their substitute coming on. You do have to leave on your team's side, right? So you can't just walk off the field in any direction. It has to be on your team's side of the field. You can't leave and then re-enter within the same dead ball span. And the substitute must get to their team's side of the neutral zone before the snap, or else we'll have an illegal substitution. Now, a couple other pre snap penalties that you may see. One is an illegal shift. And let's talk about movement. Both of these involve movement pre snap by the offense. And we have another video on High School Rep that is all about pre snap and has some good examples of what is legal and illegal when it comes to pre snap shifts and motions. To keep it simple here, it's the same rules as tackle football, essentially. So all players on the offense, and we're only talking about the offense, all 7 players must come set for at least 1 second before the snap. All right, so after a huddle or shift, when there's multiple players moving, all offensive players must come to a stop for at least 1 second before the snap. Now, once all 7 players have come to a stop for at least 1 second, the offense can have one player go in motion and stay in motion at the snap, as long as that player is not moving toward the line of scrimmage when the snap occurs. Okay. So those would be a legal shift if we have multiple players moving at the snap or not everybody gets set, or would be a legal motion if we have a player in motion that's moving forward when the snap occurs. Again, if you have more questions about this, I would check out our pre-snap video on High School Ref YouTube channel. Moving on to handing and passing the ball. Handing the ball, so handoffs. That is defined as the ball contacting both players and us having that joint possession, right? Is a handoff. It's not a pass. It's handing the ball to somebody. And we can have a backward handoff anytime. That could occur downfield. But we can only have a forward handoff by the offense behind the line of scrimmage, right? So normally that you see kind of who you would deem as the quarterback gets the snap and hands the ball off to one of their teammates. That's perfectly legal to hand it off forward behind the line of scrimmage. Backward passes. Backward passes are a hallmark of flag football, and essentially anyone can throw one at any time. Right? There's no restrictions on where a backward pass can take place. It can be behind the line of scrimmage. It could be beyond the line of scrimmage. It could be by a team that intercepts the ball and then throws a backward pass as they're running back the interception. Anybody can throw a backward pass at any time. For it to be backward, that essentially means that its initial direction is parallel with or toward the runner's end line. So essentially, if you throw a backward pass and the initial direction is straight horizontal on the field or in any way backward, that is defined as a backward pass. The ball is dead when it hits the ground, or if it goes out of bounds on a backward pass and belongs to the passing team, and it results in a touchback if you were to throw a backward pass that somehow ended up going forward. and it would if it lands in the other team's end zone, or a safety if it ends in your end zone. Now, again, we talk about the initial direction. If a player throws a backward pass, the initial direction is horizontal or backward. The momentum of that player moving may cause that ball to actually go forward in yardage and still be legal. It's the initial direction of that pass. So it's, again, we're not looking at where the passer is on the field and where the ball lands. We're looking at that initial direction of the pass. Is it parallel with or toward the runner's end line? Forward passes. We do have some requirements on forward passes. It's very similar to tackle football. So we can have a legal forward pass by the offense before a change of possession. Both feet of the passer need to be behind the line of scrimmage when the ball is released. That's the orange puck. And of course, you only get one forward pass per down by the offense. So you have to throw it from behind the line of scrimmage. If we do have illegal forward passes, those would take place after a change of possession, right? You can't intercept a pass or be running it back and then throw a forward pass. That's illegal. If the offense throws it from beyond the orange puck, that would be an illegal forward pass. Or, of course, if we have two or more forward passes in a down, the second and subsequent ones would be illegal. We do have intentional grounding in flag football. We don't see it a lot, but a pass intentionally is bolded there. A pass intentionally thrown into an area not occupied by a receiver would be intentional grounding, or a pass thrown incomplete to save loss of yardage or to conserve time. But again, it must be intentional. We don't have tackle boxes in flag football, and we don't have, the ball doesn't have to cross the line of scrimmage. We don't have any of those factors. It's for us, was that ball intentionally thrown into an area not occupied or to save loss of yardage or conserve time? That's the criteria. Now, we do have the exception that a passer can spike the ball to stop the clock if they're directly behind the snapper and throw it immediately into the ground. And again, directly behind the snapper, they still have to be 2 yards back. But if they take the snap and just immediately spike it to the ground, that is legal to stop the clock. Incomplete passes, again, same as tackle football. We have a forward pass that touches the ground. That's an incomplete pass if it goes out of bounds. And then it is 1 foot in bounds for flag football to be a completed catch. So that first foot needs to land, or first body part needs to land in bounds. Now we talk about catches. So what is a catch in flag football? Well, it is the same rule as the other levels of football up to college, where it's 1 foot. So to have a catch, our receiver must establish control of the ball. They must first contact inbounds, and yes, 1 foot for us is a legal catch. They need to perform an act common to the game or maintain control long enough to do so. And maintain complete and continuous control throughout the process of contacting the ground. Obviously, if you watch the NFL or watch college football, there's always lots of conversation on what is or is not a catch. It's the same criteria for us as it is for high school football. If if we have a close, like whether they caught it or whether they didn't catch it, that player needs to have control long enough and to perform an act common to the game, meaning they need to, if they take a third step, that might be an act common to the game. If they turn, make a juke move, that might be an act common to the game. If they extend the ball out to try and break the plane of the goal line, that might be an act common to the game. But that type of thing. And then if they are going to the ground as they're making the catch, they do have to control the ball through contacting the ground. So, if they're falling to the ground as they get 2 hands on the ball and they, tuck that ball away, but then they contact the ground and it bounces out and hits the ground, that's an incomplete pass. Moving on to pass interference. And our pass interference rules are also very similar to the high school tackle football. See a lot of our rules in this NFHS flag football book mirror a lot of what the tackle football rules are. So, what is pass interference? It's when any player interferes with an opponent's opportunity to move toward, catch, or bat the pass. It does have to take place beyond the neutral zone. What is not pass interference? Unavoidable contact occurs when two or more players are making a play on the ball, and I think that's an important statement there. The offense and the defense both have the same right to go for the football. There are no differences in the rules for an offensive player or a defensive player when it comes to pass interference or the right to go for the ball. All right, so we are going to have situations where there is contact and we do not have flags, right? If two players are making a bona fide attempt to catch the ball and they have some contact with each other, we likely are not going to have a flag. Now, what can constitute pass interference? Here are a few examples that may be a penalty. The first is playing through the back. When we have a receiver or a defensive player, right? It doesn't matter offense or defense, the rules are the same. But when we have a player that is in position to catch the ball or make an attempt to catch the ball, and an opponent goes through that player, making contact, through the back of that player, for instance, to get to the football, in that case, we can have pass interference. Also, if a player pushes an opponent to gain separation, maybe an offensive player pushes off a defender to separate and catch a pass, that can be pass interference. Holding an opponent, making contact with an opponent without making an attempt to catch the ball, and illegal pick plays on the offense where maybe one offensive receiver will create contact with a defender to get their teammate open, right? Those are all examples that can be deemed pass interference. And I would again, I've done a number of videos, I think 6 of them at this point, each week of the flag football season on the High School Ref YouTube channel, and they all have plays with analysis. The number of those are pass interference plays. So that would be a great resource to learn more. Now, in NFHS, we do have punts. Right? We do have punts now in flag football at the high school level. Let's talk about what those look like. So, for us to have a punt or a scrimmage kick, it could be done on any down, but normally on 4th down, the referee is going to ask the team on offense, do you want to kick or do you want to go for it? So the offense must declare when they are going to kick the ball. So if they say we're going to kick, they have to kick. If they say we're going to go for it, you got to go for it. All right. So there's no fake punts here in high school flag football. All right. The referee then will announce to the defense, 4th down, offense has elected to kick, or 4th down, offense has elected to go for it, and should give the defense a few seconds to make any substitutions, right? If a defense might have like a kick return team, they should be given a few seconds to substitute those players onto the field and then to blow the ready for play whistle. Now, a team can make a change to that decision, but only after a timeout, a penalty, or a period change. So if the offense says we want to kick and we blow the ready for play and have announced that they want to kick, but now they change their mind, they can take a timeout and then change their mind. On a scrimmage kick after the snap. So before the snap, pre-snap looks exactly the same as any other play. The offense still needs to have one player at least 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. The kicker needs to be lined up at least 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage to take the snap. And pre-snap movement, motion, false starts, encroachment, all of that is the same on a kick play. Now, what is different is after the snap. So after the snap, neither team may enter the neutral zone before the ball is kicked. All right. So the offense or the kicking team cannot cross the orange puck until the ball is kicked. Same with the defense or the receiving team. They cannot cross the yellow puck until the ball is kicked. Now they can move. So the kicking team, for instance, they could line up, maybe 10 yards into the backfield, and then the ball is snapped, and they begin running up toward the line of scrimmage to get that momentum. As long as they don't cross the line of scrimmage, the orange puck, until the ball is kicked, that is perfectly legal. The kicker does need to kick the ball within 5 seconds, or else that would be a delay of game penalty. Now, after the kick, so we have the punt. Any receiving team member can catch or recover the kick and advance it, right? So you can return the punt as the receiving team. The kicking team members, if a receiving team member is not in position to catch the kick, they could catch the kick and the ball is dead at that point, or recover it once it's hit the ground. The ball is dead and belongs to the receiving team at that time. After the kick, this is the only time when the ball can hit the ground in flag football and not be dead. That is an untouched punt. The punt goes up in the air, lands on the ground, rolls along the ground, bounces along the ground. As long as it has not been touched by somebody after the kick, that ball continues to be live. So it could roll, or it could bounce 4 or 5 times, and then the receiving team picks it up and returns it. That ball is still live. But if, let's say, the receiving team is in a position to catch the kick and they muff it, it hits the returner, the receiver, and then hits the ground, because it has now been touched, it is now dead at that spot and belongs to the receiving team. And then a kick that goes out of bounds is just spotted at the spot that goes out of bounds and belongs to the receiving team. We do have touchbacks that work the same as they do in high school tackle football. When the kick breaks the plane of the receiving team's goal line, it is a touchback. And if you were to have a really bad kick that went backwards, that could potentially be a safety. Now, again, in the high school ref weekly videos with plays, there are a lot of kick plays in there. Would definitely encourage you to take a look at those. And just one quick thing to note is that uh, you could theoretically still have a blocked kick. You will see some teams that will place their receiving team members right on that yellow puck on the defense's side. Again, they cannot cross, they can't run up to the kicker and block it, but they could stand around their side of the yellow puck and jump up and try to block the kick. If that ball is touched and hits the ground, it is dead at that spot. Let's move on to scoring and touchbacks. Scoring. So we do have touchdowns, obviously. That is when the runner crosses the opponent's goal line with possession of the ball, or a loose ball is caught by a player in the opponent's end zone. When we have a touchdown, we should be conducting a flag check, our referees, meaning that they should ask the player that scores a touchdown to pull their flag off. That proves that their flag belt is not tied, right? So there can be you can't tie the flag belt in any way, right, to keep it from coming off. So our referees will ensure that that flag is not tied prior to awarding the touchdown. After scoring the touchdown, the offense or the scoring team has the selection to go for a 1-point try from the 3-yard line or a 2-point try from the 10-yard line. So you'll ask the coach. Coach will say, we want to go for 1, we want to go for 2. And that try begins when the ball is marked ready for play. And once we have marked the ball ready for play, blown the ready for play whistle, the coach cannot change that choice unless they take a timeout. And then the try ends, defense gains possession, so you cannot run back an interception on the try. The ball is dead when it's intercepted. Obviously, the try is successful or the ball becomes dead. Safety and touchback. So after a safety, the opponent is going to get the ball, or they're going to get 2 points, and then they're also going to get the ball for a new series at their 30-yard line. Again, a safety is when the ball becomes dead in the in Team A's own end zone. So, for instance, you'll often could see the offense is backed up, and maybe they have the ball at their own 5-yard line, and the snap is low, right? And the snap hits the ground. The snap hitting the ground is dead. That's a backward pass. And if that hits the ground in the end zone, we then have a safety, for instance. And then after a touchback, so the kick crosses the receiving team's goal line. they are going to get the ball at the 14-yard line after a touchback. Now we'll move on to some common fouls in high school flag football under NFHS rules. And just one more plug that we talk a lot about these fouls and judgment calls and the criteria for these in the weekly play videos for our high school ref YouTube channel. Would definitely encourage you to check those out to see actual plays and game film uh, that kind of outlines the criteria for each of these flags. But let's go through them. The first is our illegal use of hands or arms. You may also hear this called illegal contact. And some examples of this are any player using hands, arms, or legs to hook, lock, clamp, grasp, encircle, or hold an opponent. Initiating contact with opponent just broadly would be a illegal contact or illegal use of hands foul. Or using hands to add momentum to the charge of a teammate, or intentionally removing a flag or a flag belt from an opponent without the ball. So you can't just go around and pull everybody's flags off to gain an advantage, right? You can only attempt to pull the flag of a player that has the ball. So any of these would be examples of illegal use of hands or arms for essentially a contact foul. And then initiating contact with an opponent, you're going to see that as one of the primary factors that our officials are looking at is when we have contact, who is initiating that contact. And I would at the beginning here of our fouls, there just because we have contact does not mean we have a foul. We think of flag football as a non-contact sport, but if you watch a flag football game, there is a lot of contact out there. And just because we have contact does not mean it's a foul. Similar with basketball, right? There's a lot of contact in basketball, and it's not always a foul. So there will be incidental contact in a lot of areas. And that, ones that come to mind is we are going to have incidental contact around the line of scrimmage, right? Because we have offensive and defensive players both, firing off the line, either running pass routes or rushing the quarterback or screen blocking. And we're going to have some incidental contact there. We're going to have some incidental contact on screen blocks. We're also going to have some incidental contact when defenders are trying to pull the flags. Just because we have contact does not mean we have a foul. Flag guarding. We talk a lot about flag guarding in the weekly videos, and we show a bunch of them. But the runners shall not grasp a teammate, extend hands or arms to ward off an opponent, contact a defender with the hands, arms, or ball that denies them an opportunity to pull the flag. These would all be examples potentially of flag guarding. Now, flag guarding is probably one of the most, I would say, most difficult calls that we make because it happens really quickly for officials. There's also a lot of, can be a lot of judgment in flag guarding. Here are some key indicators of potential flag guarding. Shoulder dipping. So our runners that have the football, when they dip their shoulders and make contact with a defender, that could be an indicator we may have flag guarding because that contact created by the offensive player or the runner is preventing the defender from getting the flag belt. Carrying the ball low over the waist. So we often hear from players that get flag guarding called on them that they're just running. It's their normal running motion. Well, that may be. It may be their normal running motion to pump their arms. But if they pump their arms and they hold their hands or the ball down below their waist and it contacts a defender trying to pull their flags, that is flag guarding. All right. So, highly encourage you to teach your players to when they have the ball, to hold it straight out in front of them and up high. Not only are they not going to flag guard, they're also going to gain about an extra yard on every play. Spin moves, we often when spin moves are completely legal, there's nothing wrong with a spin move, with spinning. But oftentimes when players spin, they get out of control and they either put a hand down and kind of swipe a defender's hand while they're spinning, or which would be flag guarding, or they spin into a defender and create contact, which that would potentially be a contact foul on the offense. And then the obvious one is hand swipes, right? So you'll see players that are holding the ball, they see a defender coming, and sometimes they don't mean to, but they'll swipe down with either their hand or the ball and swipe away a defender's hand. That is an obvious flag guarding call. And just as a reminder, we must have contact to have a flag guarding penalty. So a player can run all the way down the field with the ball, pumping their arms down below their waist. As long as there's nobody around them, that's completely legal. But as soon as the defender tries to pull the flag and contacts that arm or ball below the waist, then we have a flag guarding penalty. We must have contact to have a flag guarding penalty. Let's move on to illegal blocking. We do have a screen blocking in this rule set, and then on again, this is another one we talk a lot about in our video plays each week. But we most offenses bring one, two, three blockers at the line of scrimmage as part of their offensive formations. And when we say block, it means screen block, right? So you can't block like in tackle football and just start pushing people, right? You can't extend your arms out into people, etc. So it is a very different type of blocking when we're talking about screen blocking. Now, what that looks like, a legal screen block is when you take a position to obstruct the path of an opponent without contacting the opponent, right? So screen blocking means you are not initiating contact with the opponent. Now, blockers may move. We get this question a lot. Screen blockers may move as long as they're moving in the same direction or path as the opponent or away from them. Essentially, they just can't move into a defender and create contact, right? And then blockers may not extend arms, hands, elbows, or legs to initiate contact as well. So blockers can have their arms, down at their side, behind their back, on their chest, straight up in the air. All of those things are fine as long as they're not extending their arms, hands, elbows, or legs to initiate contact. So essentially, you need to stay within the frame of your body. But as you can see, the key words here is initiating contact, right? Contacting the opponent. What we're looking for to call a foul is an offensive player initiating contact with a defender. That's what would potentially be illegal blocking. Again, we are going to have incidental contact here. So we're looking for, fouls that have impact. We're looking for excessive contact. Um, things like that really to have fouls. If we have an offensive player that's in a legal position and the defender, has some marginal contact when they get stopped by the blocker, we probably don't have a foul there. Other personal fouls, and these are kind of a catch-all for other things here. So you can't charge into or throw an opponent to the ground. Oftentimes the charging into we see on the offense where a defender, is in a position to pull the flag, and the offensive player just charges right through them. Think of like a charge in basketball. That's if the defender's in a legal position, that contact would be on the offense. Can't hurdle an opponent, which means, and when we say hurdle, that means that the opponent has 2 feet on the ground, nothing else touching the ground, right? You can dive, you can jump in high school flag football. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can't jump over somebody that's only touching the ground with their feet. And if you're jumping or diving and you dive into somebody and create contact, the responsibility for that contact would be on the offensive player or whoever's diving there. Obviously, you can't swing a foot, shin, knee into an opponent, lift a teammate to gain an advantage, or trip an opponent either. Those would all be personal fouls. And then the last piece on the contact here again, and we talk a lot about this in the videos, is we're going to have contact around flagpoles, right? You have defenders that have to contact the runner by trying to grab their flags. And oftentimes, that those defenders may end up grabbing some shorts, they may end up grabbing some jersey, or they may end up, because of the marginal contact created, the offensive player might, then be off balance and even fall to the ground. These are tough plays. There's going to be incidental contact. What the officials are looking for is that contact excessive, right? So if the defender pulls the flag, but then, in doing so, shoves the offensive player to the ground or spins them and turns them to the ground, those would be examples of excessive contact where we should have a personal foul. Or they're looking for things that cause an advantage, right? So if a defender is going to pull the flag and grabs a whole fistful of shorts and holds is kind of holding the runner back from going forward and then pulls the flag, well, they clearly gained an advantage by holding their shorts to hold them up to deflag them. So in that case, we should have a holding penalty. So just some of those criteria, just know that we are going, just because the runner falls to the ground does not mean that we have a penalty. And I think that that's a key piece here. Sportsmanship is paramount in high school sports, also here in flag football. So we do have unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. So no player, coach, substitute, athletic trainer, other team attendant shall act in an unsportsmanlike manner. Players or coaches that receive 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties in a game are disqualified. And any unsportsmanlike conduct penalty could certainly be deemed flagrant. And if it's flagrant, that means that we have a disqualification, an ejection because of that flagrant act, right? So if we get something that's bad enough, you can just be ejected from the first foul. Here are some examples of player examples that would warrant an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Baiting or taunting the other team, using profanity, insulting, or vulgar language or gestures, especially if they're directed towards an opponent, the referee, those sorts of things, fans, even a teammate. Delayed, excessive, or prolonged act in an attempt to focus attention upon themselves. This is kind of the catch-all for an excessive celebration. We want players to have fun. If they score a touchdown, they're going to be excited. We're going to let them celebrate a little bit. But they can't, but they're we can't have 3-minute long celebrations in the end zone, right? There's an extent to where celebration becomes excessive. They also can't taunt the other team while they are celebrating or make any type of vulgar gesture while they're doing that. Kicking at the ball, other than a legal kick, could be an unsportsmanlike. Refusing to comply with an official's request as well. Some other examples, again, even non-players, right? So non-players would be substitutes, coaches, team attendants, anybody in the bench area. Obviously, they also cannot be using profanity, insulting, and vulgar language or gestures, taunting, attempting to influence an official's decision, disrespectfully addressing an official, not having their team ready to start play for either half, or a coach allowing his or her players to wear illegal equipment. Those could also be unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. All right, before we wrap up here, just some important reminders as we go into the playoffs. Make sure that you have legal equipment. All right, so that includes legal flag belts. That needs to be the quick release belt. They're often called triple threat belts. Quick release belt with 3 flags, meaning the entire belt comes off. The flags and the belt must be different colors than the shorts and pants worn by the players. The shorts, pants, they can have a stripe down the side, but the main color of the shorts or pants and the color of the stripe cannot be the same color as the flag belt itself or the flags on the flag belt. They also cannot have any pockets. You cannot tape pockets. Make sure you have mouth guards without the extra attachments. All players must have a mouth guard. Make sure you have the legal size football. That is the youth size 7 football. And then again, make sure pants, shorts do not have any pockets or belt loops. I want to thank you again for watching this flag football playoff rules video. Good luck in the state tournament and the rest of your games. Again, highly encourage you to check out the other videos here on the High School Ref YouTube channel. There's a bunch of videos of actual game film with plays and analysis, as well as some other videos that go more in depth on certain NFHS high school flag football rules topics. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.